Thank you, Mysterious Voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today, I don't want to talk about a specific book that I read, but rather it is the end of one month, February, and the beginning, or it'll soon be the beginning of another, March, so I want to do the usual wrap-up and TBR. In terms of February, I thought there were a number of good books that I read, but there were some letdowns, and I'll talk more about that when I get into it. But at the same time, I thought it was mostly more good than bad. And I do have some great things planned for March. Some Bevan reads that I've been meaning to get to, and some short stories that I think are gonna stand out as well. So I'm pretty excited for what the rest of the year is going to yield in terms of books. In terms of other things like politics, it's pretty scary. Also, I'm currently on strike as I talk about this. My union at my university has chosen to go on strike, so that's interesting. That's the first thing that's happened to me. If you've ever gone on strike, let me know in the comments below and let me know how that went for you. But without further ado, let's talk about the wrap-up in TBR, and then I'll move on from there. So for the February wrap-up, what did I read? In terms of books, I read Sphere by Michael Crichton, which I thought was good. I really enjoyed the sort of tense, very claustrophobic atmosphere that Michael Crichton had written. It's a really good setup and a strong middle. But the ending is a bit strange, especially how the ultimate terror in the story is really just the power of imagination, and the ending is a bit unclear, I would say, or I would say the ending isn't definite in any sort of way. So the issue is that Michael Crichton could have just made a stronger ending to the book, because he set it up so well. You think there's going to be something horrifying, but it's just the villain isn't what he could have done, but it's usual good Michael Crichton writing, followed by Michael Crichton over-explaining of science, which that's just how he does things. I also read Sawbones by the McElroys, including Sidney McElroy, who is a doctor. It's basically from their podcast, which I thought was I haven't read or listened to the podcast really, but I do think it was a fun book of trivia. There's not much else to it, but if you're looking for some trivia on the medical world, the Sawbones book is probably a worthy read or something like that. I also read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which I thought was great. Probably the best of the month in terms of what I've read. I really enjoyed the sort of dynamic between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, especially how Elizabeth comes to realize that all her preconceived notions about Mr. Darcy are wrong. So a very solid book, and one that was on my TBR, and I'm happy that I finally got to it. Although I will say the writing was kind of nonsense. It's very much of its time, hard to get into. You kind of have to watch the movie to really fully understand it. And then the setup for the story does take a little bit too long. There's not really a lot that happens. It's just there's not a strong central plot to the story, but it's still good, I would say. So definitely worth checking out. I also read Clotel, or The President's Daughter, which I thought was really good. What it was saying about slavery and whatnot, especially about Thomas Jefferson and how he had children with his slaves, and how we're supposed to respect this man who abuses the people that he's essentially abusing his fellow man. I thought that was pretty great writing, although I will also say that there's not much of a plot to this story, and it seems like the author was more interested in waxing poetic about or waxing philosophical about slavery more so than telling an actual story. Which that makes sense, especially given he's trying to persuade his readers to not support slavery. But again, if you're looking for a plot-heavy story, that's probably not what you're going to find with Clotel. Still pretty good though, in my opinion. And then I also read Dragon Ball Volume 1 by Akira Toriyama, which I thought it was okay. I felt that there was too much of a focus on the lady character's like body in particular. A whole bunch of jokes about like Goku is seeing this this woman naked and whatnot. Ooh, what does that mean? And it's too zany and I'd say a little bit sexist, and kind of misogynistic in a way. Not my favorite. I might seek out more Dragon Ball in the future, but I probably will not read more and soon. It just didn't seem like it was for me. I also read The Squirrel Mother, which was really just a bunch of short stories in graphic novel format. Not a fan of it. These stories didn't really seem all that great, and the writing wasn't much to write home about, and the art was just so not really that great. That was a library read, by the way. And then I read Berserk Volume 16, which I thought was exciting, a lot of fun, and definitely made me want to check out more of the series, which I'll be doing pretty soon. As for short stories, I read a number in February, which were all written by Black authors, because I was doing a Black History Month sort of celebration. I read Fairness, which I thought was okay, but largely a forgettable story. I and Gomorrah, which I thought was a good short story about space travel and obsession with certain bodies and whatnot. This Man and Me, which I thought was a good story as well. And then Superhuman, which I thought was good, really great, actually, best of the month in terms of short stories. It was a interesting short story about a superhero who decides that they no longer have faith in humanity and they want to see it destroyed, and so someone has to persuade them, but they find it hard to persuade them because of racial events that have happened to this superhero. So very interesting writing, which I highly recommend that you go seek out. And then I also read a number of poems, which were also by Black writers for Black History Month. So refer to my Poetry Thursday playlist if you want more details on that. But what's on my TBR for the month of March? I have a number of books planned, including one that I was going to get to in February, but I didn't have enough time, and that is If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin, a pretty good book that I've always heard about. And then James Baldwin, of course, is an author that is pretty celebrated in literature circles, and also just in the Black community at large. I also checked out The Wave by Duran Yagala, which it's a sort of biography. It's also about the tsunami that hit the Indian Ocean in 2004 or 5, one of those years. The book will probably provide more information about that. Looking forward to that. And then I have a number of graphic novels planned. We See Each Other, which is a Bevan recommendation. They gave that book to me when they moved to India, so that's on my list. And then a similar book is called Paper Names, which is a novel. I think We See Each Other is about Black individuals in TV, movies, and things like that. Paper Names I don't know anything about, but I'm very excited to read it and maybe talk about it if it's worth it. And then a number of library reads that I have planned. Don't forget to patronize your local library. They might have interesting books and other sorts of things that you can check out and read and become culturally enriched with. For March, I also have a number of short stories planned, including by authors like Clark Ashton Smith and Langston Hughes. I picked out Langston Hughes for Black History Month, but I ended up selecting more authors than I necessarily had time to get to in February, because there's only like 4 weeks in there. So I plan to have that spill over into March, and I think the same applies to my poems for Poetry Thursday. There's some Black authors that I selected, but I haven't read them, so I'll continue that into March, and also potentially read other authors that are of different or other diverse qualities and whatnot. So be on the lookout for that. Anyway, that's my wrap up and TBR for February and March, respectively. If you have any recommendations for me or you want to comment on something that I've talked about here, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you and have a discussion about this. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about these books or this channel if they don't know about that. Also, join the Discord, which I'll put a link to in the description if you want to have more conversations about books, movies, TV, or other forms of media, or just make silly jokes or something like that. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and March related travels. Farewell.